On the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to productlessons.com, a podcast channel where we talk to accomplished product leaders from all over the world and learn from them how they build and manage world-class software products. And if you want to listen to audio-only podcast, you can go to SoundCloud. I have the link below in the description. It's called, it's my old podcast. It's yours productly. Quite difficult to spell, but if you have the link below, you can check it out. So today I'm thrilled to have with me Marissa SIRES from New York. She's the VP Product and Innovation at Building Link. And Marissa has held several product leadership roles for a long time, and we will get to know from her about her exciting career trajectory. So join hands with me to welcome her. Let me pull her into screen then. Hi, Marissa. Welcome to Product Lessons. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing great.
So, Marissa, I know you have had leadership roles since a long time now. You are a veteran here, and that's why I hunted for you and wanted to talk to you. Why don't you share with us your vast career experience and let us know what all you have done over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming from a degree in comparative literature here at Columbia in New York, I was not really set up to move into tech, but there was a company based here where I got an internship in the last semester of university. And I was there for a year and a half, and that kind of jump-started my career. But having not been with a technical background, I was in customer support, I was in account management, I was working directly on the front lines with the people who were using our software. And I stayed in that account management role for the first several years of my career. And it was at a company called Efficient Frontier in digital marketing, where we were focused on search engine marketing, specifically paid ads on Google and Yahoo and Bing when it first launched. And it was there that we were expanding into display advertising. And as an account manager, I had my first opportunity to lead that beta program from the account management side and work directly with the customers that were using that new display technology that we were releasing. And I worked very closely with both product and engineering to understand that feedback, prioritize it, figure out how we were going to optimize and get to general availability. And so that really kind of piqued my interest in product. In my next role at Gigia, I then as well, within a few months, had an opportunity. So Gigia was make your website social. It was all about social login and sharing and ratings and reviews. We were launching a game mechanics product. And with the game mechanics product, I again led that beta rollout, working really closely with product and engineering. And within a year after that, I moved into a product role. But my product career was anything but typical, I would say, because I was really working in a hybrid product management, product strategy, product marketing capacity, where it really was earlier days of product. So our company was still waterfall, we weren't agile, and we had product managers who came from tech backgrounds, software backgrounds, and they were based in Israel. So they didn't have experience directly with customers because we didn't have those in Israel, and we didn't really have customer-facing teams either. And so I was really playing this outbound product manager role where I was working directly with clients, developing our strategy, prioritizing our roadmap, and then the team in Israel was then collaborating on how we were going to execute and working directly with our engineers. So moving up in that role, I ended up as VP of product. Instead of being parallel to that team in Israel, I was running the whole team. And so that was my first opportunity to really lead in product management. But it's a bit difficult once I left Gigia to then take on new product leadership roles when I had never had that hands-on experience as a product manager. So at a company called Rally, which was an under 10 person seed stage startup, I had the opportunity to cut my teeth kind of leading product, but also leading customer support and being the hands-on product manager for a number of our products, focused on our riders and our partners. And that was the role that really gave me that confidence to be the hands-on product manager and then to move back into leadership roles at somewhat larger, but I prefer smaller companies. So I moved over to HANA, which is a flex workspace company, where I then was also VP product, VP innovation. And It was a startup, but it was a part of CBRE, so it was never super small. I came in, we were already about 50 or 60 people, and now I am at Building Link, which is about 100 people as well. And it's a really exciting place because unlike HANA, where I was working in technology at a company where the proper product was physical workspace, I'm now leading product at a company where the technology is the core of the business. We are a software company, and we are undergoing a product-led transformation. So it's a really great time to lead a team, try out new things, use best practices, and really drive a business forward. That's a family-owned business and has been around for 20 years.
Exciting. You said you prefer working in smaller companies. What's the difference between leadership, product leadership roles in a larger organization and a smaller organization? And why is your preference smaller companies?
So my only experience at a very large company would be at HANA, because it was a wholly owned subsidiary of CBRE, which is a global Fortune 150 commercial real estate services and investment firm. So HANA was a wholly owned subsidiary, so it was a little bit on the outside, but it was very tied into this behemoth that is CBRE. So within a startup, everybody wears a lot of hats, or within a small company, I would say Building Link also has that startup culture. Everyone wears a lot of hats. You jump in where you're needed. It's not that there is necessarily a dedicated person for every specific niche of a role. People have broader purview. And I think that fosters a lot more collaboration. So in the larger organization, there's a lot more top-down decision-making, a lot more hierarchy, and a lot less freedom to move out of your lane, as it were.
Got it. So what exactly are your roles then in Building Link? If you can just define your roles and responsibilities, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So within my team, I'm leading product management, product design, and also data and integrations, which is a new addition to the team. And so my day-to-day, the core of what I'm doing that's really going to drive our goals forward going through the end of the year is engaging with my team with our one-on-ones, our team meetings, hiring. So we're hiring for a head of product design and a new senior product manager. And then I'm also interacting heavily across the organization and primarily with our sales and our training support organizations, because as a product leader, your job is as much to lead your product team and to lead your product strategy as it is to engage with other stakeholders and make sure they're brought into the process and they're also bought into everything that you're doing. So really fostering a culture of transparency and communication is a key part of kind of landing in Building Link and establishing the product org as one that is working together across teams.
Nice. You said you are hiring a senior product manager. What kind of product managers would you like to hire? Do they vary from a stage, the stage of the company? Is it now? What choices do you make, and what kind of product people do you like to hire in your team?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and one that I am struggling with right now, because typically hiring a product manager, not a senior product manager, but just somebody who's coming in who has some experience, but perhaps not extensive. There are 4 attributes of a product manager that I'm looking for that are completely separate from any product manager experience. And it's people who are smart, curious, have attention to detail, and are good at time management. These are really the core foundations that I found that if you have these, you can come in and you can be successful as a product manager with the right leadership, even if you don't necessarily have the right experience. And because of that, I don't typically like to hire product managers that are necessarily subject matter experts in whatever our product is. Now at Building Link, we are specifically hiring for somebody that will ultimately take over our accounting suite of products, which is a ledger platform, as well as integrations with our clients' financial tools. And so we started off looking for senior product manager accounting suite. We are now looking for senior product manager fintech. And we really started off wanting to bring in that accounting subject matter expertise, because it's not something that we have strong foundations for within our product management team. We're really a property management software, and we're expanding into offering this accounting software so that we can have this one-stop shop for the buildings that we work with and the management companies that we work with. This is the balance. So, it becomes very difficult when you're slicing in all these different ways to find the product manager that is a great fit from the soft skills to the experience when you're also bringing in the SME piece. So I think ultimately I went against my my traditional instincts to look for an SME, and in the end we might end up with a blanket senior product manager role that does not have any SME requirements.
That's nice to know. Yeah, in the past, whenever I have been asked other senior product people, product leaders, they often like to balance it out. So they would get a guy who has good product management functional experience, and then they would mix it up with another person who is a domain expert, and then somebody who does not have a domain expert, does not have functional expertise, but is curious and driven and gets things done. So it seems like the choice is to have a team of product managers with mixed skill sets and strengths.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Cool. So you are in Building Link since the past 3 months, and I usually am very curious to ask from product leaders who are new to a role on, and I'm also very curious about the first 100 days on how to, because the first few months are very crucial to set yourself in a new company and set yourself for success and build influence and get started. So what are your ways to get started with a role like this in a new organization, and what were your first 100-day plans?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. Just entering month 3 here, and I actually had a unique experience in the hiring process at Building Link, where I was brought pretty deeply into what is the company mission, and actually came up with kind of what my approach would be coming in. And so I was able to talk to a lot of different people across different parts of the organization before I even got started, and developed a 90-day plan. Certainly part of that 90-day plan was, change this plan once I get in and actually learn stuff. But it was all about coming in, meeting the team, evaluating the team, building a bond with my direct team, while also getting to know a lot of different people across the org. So I was setting up multiple meetings per week, meeting different leaders, meeting different individual contributors across the different parts of the organization, to really establish myself as a leader, as somebody people could come to make them feel confident in the future of the product org. And then moving into the second 60 days, it would be to actually get to know the product better, or it's the second 30 days up to 60. And so that was all about, what is it that we do? Who is our target market? How well do we understand our buyers and our users? Where are we situated? What does the competition look like? And kind of take in that piece so that we can really formulate the strategy and make sure that we have confidence in the strategy that we are devising for the product within that obvious construct of the company strategy and the company vision. And going into the last 30 days, into the 90 days, it's, how do we bring that all together? So coming into Q4, we have OKRs set up, or objectives and key results. We have the roadmap. We know what everybody is working on and how that ladders up to those OKRs and how those ladder up to the product strategy. And then by the end of this, next month, we want to have that. We want to be prepared so that we'll know what does our 2021 strategy look like? How does that ladder up? And what are the outcomes that we're going after that are going to drive our roadmap, so that we can have that really established roadmap that enables us to say no to requests that come in that don't fit into that strategy. So really preparing the product team for success by laying those foundations that give us the grounding to drive our roadmap. To be outcome focused and not to be reactive to kind of output oriented features that are coming in from different stakeholders.
Got it. So one thing I'm very curious and always interested to know is, I can understand the functional stuff and the operational stuff about product management, like the target market, competition, understanding the product metrics and stuff like that. I'm always interested to know about the people aspect on how can you said you wanted to bond with your team. What are the ways to to build rapport with your team as early as possible and earn their respect. I'm sure earning respect is a long-term thing. Over time, you earn respect. But what are the first few things that you do and you recommend others to do to build a rapport and a relationship with your team around you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as we were chatting about before we got started here, I've never actually met my team in person. So the entire interview process, onboarding process up through today has been remote over Zoom and now Microsoft Teams as well. So it offers interesting challenges, but the most important thing is really coming in and making sure that my team feels heard. So establishing things like our weekly one-on-ones where I set it up for an hour and I tell them, the first part is your time. The second part is if there's anything that I need to raise with you, it's an hour right now because I'm going to have a ton of questions. It's going to evolve over time. Can be a big time commitment, but it is their time and making sure that they know that. It's creating a product team weekly meeting where we are getting all of our product managers and designers together and really driving alignment across the team that everybody knows what everybody else is working on, and also giving us an opportunity to introduce new concepts and to coach the team. So that's where we're introducing things like objectives and key results, or RICE prioritization, where we're focusing on reach, impact, confidence, and effort. And then it's really fostering a culture of openness, transparency, and feedback. And so there hasn't been really historically open feedback and lines of communication in that way. So I've instituted something at our weekly meeting where we're talking about, one thing that we've learned, one thing we're proud of, one thing that challenged us, and giving a kudo to somebody else, because it's a way to get the team to, one, open up about the things that they are learning, which we want to embrace, the things that do challenge them. So that's not seen as a bad thing. That's seen as something that you can overcome and succeed through, and leverage your team to help you through that. Being proud is being able to take that ownership over the work that you're doing, and giving kudos is a way to introduce positive feedback. So obviously we want constructive feedback as well, and I'm doing that with my teams in one-on-ones, but as a starting point, get people feeling really comfortable with feedback can be a very positive thing, and it can reinforce the great work that they are doing. So I think those are the most important things, is just making sure that I'm super accessible, that they're not getting blindsided by anything, that they're getting protected from things coming at them from all sides, and that they feel that they can come to me, question the things that they're working on if it doesn't make sense, which people are doing, raise concerns if they feel that maybe they're under threat or somebody's not collaborating with them well, and people have done that. So those are just some of the ways that communication and transparency have been really beneficial.
Excellent. Other than that, for your own role, I strongly believe, especially for me, in a new role, learning fast is obviously expected, but also you should be delivering something of value, your quick wins within the first 90 days.
Yeah.
So do you work out your quick wins with your boss, with CEO here, I suppose? How do you come up with what are the few things that you need to deliver first for a VP?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it goes back to kind of the 90-day plan and the OKRs that we're setting up. So I've had the pleasure of being really autonomous and being able to come to the CEO and saying, like, these are the things that we're focused on. Does this make sense? Are there things that you want to question? And so in terms of what the quick wins are, I've really been able to drive those. So we've done things like the instituting of OKRs and RICE, like giving product a voice at our biweekly, or fortnightly, as my Australian colleague would say, all hands meeting, and making sure that we are being seen by the org. And so that has paid dividends already in terms of sales and training and support's comfort in knowing what product is doing and why. It has to do with building up the team. So bringing in contractors really quickly to fill gaps while we're hiring, to promoting someone from our training and support team who had been tangentially involved in product, and is now working formally as a user research coordinator. So there are a lot of different ways, from elevating product within the org to elevating our people, to to really just driving this transparency that I would say have given us a lot of quick wins. So it is in that learning, it's figuring out really quickly what those quick wins are, and then executing on them and having that bias to action.
Thank you. So one of the things that you said was defining the vision of the product line or product. Usually the CEOs already have a vision. So how does a VP of product pitch in here? Does she validate the vision, or refining the vision? So what are your ways to work on the vision for the product?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been really interesting to come into this organization. As I mentioned, we've been around for 20 years. We've built an amazing product that, especially in New York, is quite ubiquitous and well known. It does a lot to help buildings and management companies run their properties better. But we have been around 20 years and we have built up a ton, and we are at this inflection point of really being product led for the first time and introducing a lot of product best practices. And so unlike coming into a startup where it's very new and the founders have that very specific vision that you're talking about, we have a bit more freedom now to define what the product is going to look like within, again, the construct of the company's goals. And so in defining the vision, it's taking that company mission and translating that into how we're going to focus on our product as the central hub for all things that happen within residential properties, such that we are modernizing and simplifying working and living in those buildings. So we have such a complex product, but I do at least then have the freedom within that to figure out what are we going to do, what are we not going to do, and within those company goals, where are we focusing this quarter, where are we focusing over the next year, and just making sure that as long as it's tied back, that we can justify what we're doing in the context of the company strategy, use a prioritization framework that the company understands, so they can understand the trade-offs that we're making between different things we could be working on. We then have a lot of autonomy on how we're going to move forward.
Excellent. So let's talk about, so vision is set and it's collaboratively done. So let's talk about the strategic plans for the next few years, and that is where you'll be playing a more active role, right? So how do you come up with strategic product plans, and then how does it translate into execution?
Yeah, so it's a big question, and it really ties right back into thinking about those company goals. So we do have the company goals on kind of where we want to be at the end of 2023, and so we're working within that. We have this 20-year-old product, so there's a lot of modernization and stabilization of that current platform that we're focusing on, and it's really understanding what are those key areas that are going to drive us forward. So we have the benefit of working with over 5,000 buildings already. So we have a huge existing customer base. And so there's how we're going to service that existing customer base while also empowering our salespeople to continue to grow our market. So it's really breaking down those company level goals over the next 3 years into the product level goals kind of quarter by quarter, and how we're going to iterate against them and set our targets. We're also doing a lot of reading up on North Star metrics, which I know that you posted about recently. But one thing I really want to do for the team is empower them to think about those metrics that we can really impact within product, even before well, when I first started, really, the team was already questioning, how do we know that we're driving revenue? How do we know that we're driving retention? And so really thinking through that North Star metric and the inputs that go into it that are directly driven by product activity, that are those leading indicators for how we're going to drive those lagging indicators of revenue and retention and things like that. So I would say the strategy is about the goals coming from the company strategy, but it's also about how we make that tangible for the product org, and over time, really gain the confidence that the goals that we're achieving on a quarterly basis will get us to those goals that we want to hit by the end of 3 years.
Got it. However, I mean, with changing the technological landscape and the pace of changes so much, it becomes really, really difficult to imagine a roadmap of 3 years, right? So,
oh yeah.
So is it expected, because sometimes when a VP of product commits a 3-year roadmap or strategic plan, it's like set in stone for the rest of this organization. How do you explain the uncertainty of the future to the rest of your organization?
Yeah, so creating a formal 3-year roadmap is something I would push back against pretty hard. But at a higher level, I mean, the whole evolution within product management over the last several years, to really pushing organizations to be outcome focused is really critical here, because it's all about what we're trying to achieve without getting tied down to the specific functionality that we're going to release to get there. It's about really focusing on the problems that we need to solve that are going to drive the metrics that we're focused on, and working across product design, engineering, and of course, broader stakeholders internally and externally to figure out what solutions are best going to get us there. So that's why I do like to take this very like goal-oriented approach, where it's about the metrics and it's about what we're trying to achieve. And we don't have to decide now what in 2022 is going to help us achieve those goals. And also, knowing what the company level goals are, we can iterate as we go to the specifics of the product level goals that are going to drive us there. But I would want, going into 2021, it obviously gives, sales and client-facing teams a bit of confidence to have a feel for how we're going to focus. So that focus on modernization and stabilization has been really empowering for them. And the last thing that I'll say on this is that, there's also this constant struggle of dates and commitments and when things are going to be released and promising things to customers. So I am a big proponent of not promising functionality to companies in order for them to sign. It's always a rabbit hole, and even if they're offering to pay you for that, it's not going to cover the cost, the intangible costs of diverting your development in that way. So we're also doing a lot of education with the sales team, even just getting them a little familiar with what agile is, what velocity means, and how we think about how we evaluate the size and complexity of the things that we're working on, and why we don't set specific dates. And so we'll set guidelines, especially when there are certain things that we know we're working on that are going to be really beneficial to the market, but that's much closer to the releases than me telling them now that by the end of next year we're going to release whatever the case may be.
Thank you. You mentioned you are outcome focused, and it's not about what features to release, but what problems to solve. What are your tactics or strategies to pick the right product opportunities that drives value for the organization, and how do you do that with your team of product managers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm a huge proponent of completely opening the aperture of product ideas. So customers who have ideas, internal stakeholders who have ideas, we have channels for them to submit those. Oftentimes those are going to be very feature focused. This is what I want. It's obviously up to product to suss out why they want that thing, what is that problem, and then tackling that problem without being kind of stuck within the constraints of a specific solution that they are suggesting. But it's also about taking all of those inputs through the lens of what are our goals in the upcoming period. And, if we solve that problem, is it going to accomplish these goals, or is it going to accomplish some other goals? And so it's that constant questioning that we are doing that first level prioritization to say no to anything that falls outside of our goals. And that's why you have goals. People often think about, goals tell us what to do, which they don't quite tell you what to do, but they help guide what you are going to do. But more importantly, they help you to say no to the things that you shouldn't be doing. And so one of the key values of having those goals and having some level of roadmap into the future of what those goals are going to be helps you to say no, because it's very clear, this thing that you want us to do that's going to help us drive sales. Well, right now we're focused on our current customer base and retention. So understanding the full value of those goals of our OKRs. And then I mentioned that we are using RICE prioritization. So once we kind of figure out what is the scope of potential problems that we could be solving to drive the current goals, then how do we prioritize amongst them? And so RICE allows us to use reach, how many properties or potentially units are going to be impacted by this thing that we can build. What is that impact? Is it a massive impact or a minor impact? Again, based on a specific goal that it will be impacting. How confident are we? And that confidence level is critical because it helps to account for our guts. So we want to make sure that we're not just going on gut instinct, but that we are being data driven. So how much of that reach and impact determination are based on actual data versus our instincts. And so setting a confidence factor based on that, and then effort. And so all of that great, the numerator of how much reach and impact we're going to have will get divided by just how complex that feature is. Or that potential solution or problem area, but thinking through also potential solutions as we're thinking through kind of how big that's going to be. And from there, prioritizing within that. And so RISE has proven really fruitful in terms of being able to see that something sounds really great. It sounds like a great problem, but oh, it's only going to impact this tiny portion of our existing customer base. So what else is there?
Got it. How do you split a good passionate product person? It's difficult to keep the urge from getting your hands dirty, but then you're a VP of product, so you have to actually empower your product managers to do the work. So it's very difficult to split that role. So what are your ways of splitting the product role between you and the product managers so that you do not overlap or you do not do a job that they should do, and vice versa?
Yeah, so I think it's a really good question. And I think, as you progress in your career, you get more and more comfortable with being a leader, that you're not an individual contributor, and it's all about kind of being a layer above rather than being down in the weeds. So as a VP, you really have this kind of bird's eye view. And so my goal or my job is really to see what's happening across all of these different product squads and making sure that people are talking when, things may be overlapping, and that we do have this shared toolkit that everybody is building from to execute on product in the best way. But when it comes to the team, I'm up here figuring out, what are our team OKRs, and that's something I did in collaboration with the team, and working through how those ladder up to the company OKRs. But then each of the PMs is then responsible for both their personal OKRs for their personal growth and for their solution area or product area, how their work there is going to ladder up to the OKR. So there is really this line where when it gets into their core work, strategizing their roadmaps within their product areas, that's all them. And I'm here to support and work through them with it and ask them questions and challenge them. But the execution is all theirs. And this is something that I've been really careful to do here at Building Link, where I'm not getting involved in the nitty gritty and allowing them to figure things out and come to me when needed, and allowing them the freedom to fail. And, if they do make a misstep, making sure that we're accounting for what the consequences of that misstep could be. But generally speaking, the stakes are not so high that they shouldn't have that freedom to do things in their way, and get nudged as needed if they're going off track or could use some coaching.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. So you have been sharing a lot of instances of how you work with your product managers and managing downwards. I'm sure the skill is also to manage horizontally with other VPs. So what are your ways to work towards the other people who are as important stakeholders in the entire decision making and leadership role? So how do you work with them, and what are your ways to collaborate with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So having regular check-ins with my peers across the organization is critically important, and making sure that I'm constantly asking them questions and bringing them into our process, and sharing the things that we're doing. So, establishing demo sessions between the PMs and the sales team and the training team so that they're kept in the loop on what's being developed in product. Having biweekly syncs or fortnightly syncs with the sales team, which I've always found is a great opportunity to give them a voice to tell product what's going on in the field, and also to hear how product is progressing on the roadmap and the things that sales knows them to be working on. So it's just fostering different touch points to keep the lines of communication open, and so that nobody is blindsided by anything, and everyone is bought into the modes of work for the different teams and how it impacts the other teams.
Thank you. My next question is quite interesting. I asked this to all product people, and this is about a set of core values and philosophy, and every product person worth his salt is driven by a set of values and principles. And I started asking this after my interview with Graham Kennedy, who actually has written down his set of product philosophy. So do you have a set of core values or product philosophy that you bring into your work every day? If you have, would love to hear from you.
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and one that one of your comments had made me think about quite a bit. And I never think of myself as having a formal product philosophy, but I do strongly believe that building the best products is grounded in staying close to your customers. It's giving everyone in your ecosystem a voice, and it's owning your product roadmap proactively so you can be focused on outcomes rather than reactively focused on tactical outputs. And along with that, one of the things that I mentioned before is also that having that strategy, having that roadmap, having those goals empowers you to say no. And when your ecosystem is involved in the process of what's included in your roadmap, then you also don't have to say no as much. And so it's really about a collaborative approach to product that is empowering to everybody who's involved, both within the product team and outside of it.
Excellent, cool. In your LinkedIn, I also found that you have been making build and buy decisions. Pick my curiosity. Usually, I have been through such situations where I accidentally chanced upon an opportunity to actually buy or partner, but the natural or the default mechanism is always to build a feature yourself. We never do our research on whether we can optimize this by an existing solution, maybe partnering with them or buying with them. Do you want to share your ways of making decisions on build, buy, or partner?
Yeah, absolutely. So at its core, a question of build versus buy is really grounded in what your core competency and competitive differentiation are, both as a team and as a company. And I believe you have to have a really strong justification for building something yourself that somebody else can or already has done better. So coming into a company that builds its own CRM or builds its own screen sharing tool for trainings, or can't think of another good example, but all these tools exist. They are purpose built, and if your business is not video conferencing, if your business is not customer relationship management software, if your business is not marketing software, you shouldn't be building these things yourself. So obviously those are kind of higher level, perhaps not as closely tied to what it is that you're doing, but it's really easy to go down that rabbit hole. And I think even things that may seem more closely tied, you really have to have that question of, does this already exist? Is it already commoditized? How well is it already done? How expensive will it be for us to buy it? But also within that expense, we get back to these intangible costs. So even if we decide to build it ourselves, there are inherent costs within that. Once you build something, you have to maintain it. And the resources that are so precious within your organization, are they really better off working on that thing, or better off focusing on your core competencies and what's going to differentiate you? The last thing that I'll say with respect to that is it also goes back to your goals, and does building that, and whether you build or buy, that can be product development that's going toward your goals, but you'll want to really think through that and the different implications of the build versus buy options.
Excellent, thank you. Next segment is my favorite, and it is the meatiest part of the conversation. I've been asking this for years now to my guests, and this is called War Stories. And I get immensely fascinated to hear war stories from expert product people. So here we ask the most important product challenge that my guests have faced in their career, and how did they overcome the challenge, or if they could not, if they failed, what lessons they learned. So do you have a lesson or two to share from your vast experience for us?
Worst experience. So when I think of the most challenging product decision that I've ever had to make, it goes back to how closely product is tied to the company within technology companies, and especially within startups. And so it was actually about 5 years ago now, and it's still the anecdote that comes most top of mind when I'm asked questions like this. But I was at Gigya. As I mentioned before, we were originally a make your website social type company, where we had social login. But within a couple of years of my starting, we also expanded to manage site login as well. So it was that full front end login and registration process for websites and applications. We then stored all of that data and had integrations to port that data out to different sales, service, and marketing applications that our clients were using. And as we did that, we were obviously evolving who our client base was. Having this full registration experience opened us up such that our sales team was expanding to have both a corporate or SMB side as well as an enterprise side. And so circa around 2015, we've been doing both site and social login and registration for a couple of years, but we're getting a lot of requests, both from SMB and enterprise clients, as well as the salespeople associated with those accounts. And we started to hear that everybody, or primarily within the SMB world, we were getting these requests for how we were going to integrate our data on the back end with all of these different tools and provide that single source of truth on the data within Gigya. And those requests had nothing to do with that front end experience of users logging in and registering on the sites. It was all a back end play. And in contrast, we had our enterprise customers and salespeople and account managers coming to us with requests that were all about kind of that front end experience and that holistic front to back of how that the experience for end users and then how their data is being managed. And we were at this inflection point because we didn't have the resources to satisfy both of these things. But more important than that, at the time, our SMB salespeople didn't really realize that the requests that they were getting were asking for a customer data platform. There was this emerging type of technology that was specifically, purposely built to satisfy that need of the back-end integration of data. And that was not what we were at Gigya. We were establishing ourselves as a customer identity management platform. And that front end experience was a key differentiator when we went through our competitive analysis and how we stacked up to our competition, which was a whole other changing ecosystem at the same time. It was that front end. So if we were going to focus only on a back end play, we were going to lose that competitive differentiation that was making us a leader in the market. And so this product challenge was really feeling the confidence in our strategy and that we were focused on this front end site and social registration and how we were managing that flow, such that we were going to say no to an entire market of this SMB opportunity because it was going to be a distraction where we didn't see kind of the long-term value of going down that path. Whereas if we went all in on that front end piece, that was what was going to make us a leader. That the next year and the year after that, we're getting that, number one in the Gartner quadrants and the Forrester waves and Carpenter Cole, which is a very kind of esoteric but German-based identity management consultancy and reporting agency.
Nice. So was that the rethink of what the actual vision is happened collaboratively, or did you take the lead, or usually there are lots of owners, the the vision just gets lost. So how did you get the sanity there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it was, initially it's this gut instinct of kind of dawning on me that, these specific types of requests are coming from these customers and these other requests are coming from those customers, and really identifying the distinction there, and then coming back to the executive team and talking to stakeholders throughout the organization, and really posing to them, because this change of what our sales team is going to look like and the market that we're going after is a huge one, that starts with this protecting of the product strategy, but really extends its tentacles throughout the entire organization. So it certainly had to be a collaborative effort. And I was actually recently speaking with one of the analysts from our team, who's currently exploring new roles and looking at his resume, and he was also talking there about the analysis, the further quantitative analysis that he did to kind of back up this decision and push us forward.
Got it. I want to go back to the dynamics of collaboration with the other leadership members and what makes a good VP of product, what leadership skills to earn the respect of the rest of the board. If you could shed some light there on what makes a good VP of product.
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and I've been having a lot of conversations recently with actually heads of marketing that are in very small startups, and maybe in very small startups for the first time, and the struggles that they're facing to get marketing to get the respect that it deserves from the other pieces of the organization. But to your point, it really happened. Each executive, each leader has their own struggles and the own different constructs that are impacting their ability to develop that leadership and to develop that respect from their peers and from the rest of the organization. So for product, I mean, communication is number one. Now that I think about it, I might have left this off my list of core product manager attributes, but communication is a key one, because you are constantly communicating across all the different touch points. And I really think of product as the hub with all of the spokes going out to the different areas, because product is getting input from the field, getting input from sales and marketing and client services, and they're bringing that to the development team and bringing them into the fold on what the business strategy is. But a successful VP of product is going to be communicating. They are going to be a face. They're not going to be kind of in the background. And that doesn't mean that they're kind of pounding their chest and being like a rock star of any kind, but it's being there and having people know who they are and that they can be relied upon and what their team is working on. It's elevating their team, because a product leader is only going to be successful if their product managers have the respect of the organization. If the organization is comfortable with those product managers getting out and designers getting out in front of customers and being face to face with them. And there are a lot of companies that say, oh, no, like bring a salesperson, bring an account manager, like product can't go out there by themselves. And so it's this sort of thing where it's elevating the team. It's creating those lines of communication. It's being able to stand up. So, as a product manager, you have to be able to stand up to your team within your squad. And if there is scope creep threatening, or if an engineer says he doesn't want to do that, or she says she doesn't want to do it in that particular way, it's being able to know what it is that you want and need, and to be able to accept those challenges, talk it out, figure out what the best path forward is, take in all of the inputs and figure out how you're going to move forward, but having the leadership to make that decision on how to move forward, and really being able to move forward is driven through the collaboration and that everybody has had a voice. And so it's those skills as a product manager that you can then bring to being a product leader. But instead of the developers and the designers, you're now working with your peers across the organization. So that ability to give everyone a voice, but to be able to stand up, put your foot down, determine the path forward, when the time comes, and being able to get everybody bought into that is how you're going to be successful as a leader.
Thank you. I will try to get a little deeper there, especially to get respect, not of your product managers, but the other VPs. Say, for example, how do you resolve, you talk communication, and communication is a very wide topic, right? So communication is also about getting consensus. Communication is also about getting buy-in for a decision that a product
Mhm.
VP of product should own, like roadmap is owned by the VP of product, right? So how do you resolve differences if the, say, VP of marketing does not agree with your roadmap and stuff like that? How do you resolve conflicts and get buy-in for your decisions?
Yeah, so I think that the being most successful here does have to do with having the goals laid out, having the prioritization framework clear, being able to talk through why you're making the decisions that you're making, being able to hear out your other executives in terms of if they disagree. So I think if you've set up the right frameworks, then you have the tools that you need to push back on that. I think if you're kind of in progress and figuring out how you're going to do that, or your head of marketing is like, okay, that's all well and good, but we need a new website now, or we need this. It's being able to have that conversation. So, for example, I came into an organization in the past where the integrations were really important to a particular team, and in early conversations they were saying like that's the bread and butter of us being able to sell, and we need to have integrations, but based on the overall goals of the business, integrations were a very niche component at that time and not something that we could invest the resources in. And so when we talked them through, okay, but we are going to be focused uh, on the look and feel to help you in your demos, and we are going to be working on these areas of the platform that will help you in these ways, they were actually bought in, and they were bought in to the point that other people called out, I couldn't believe that the head of sales was so calm when you said that we weren't going to be working on integrations anymore. But because he had that context, we were able to bring him over and help to move forward our immediate goals with a plan to revisit as we establish goals for the following quarters.
Thank you. I have two last questions here before we end this. My question is, how do you stay sharp and relevant and on top of your job and your career? What are your ways to just keep upskilling yourself and being the best at what you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I hope I'm doing that. I do like to read a lot, and I don't just read product management books. I probably well, I have a big stack, but percentage wise, it's probably not as high as reading other kind of leadership books, books on giving feedback and managing people and leading people, and really just having kind of a well-rounded, you mentioned before we got started that you look for people on the podcast from whom you can learn something. And that's what I do as well, in terms of if there is something on my mind, something I want to dig more deeply into, reading articles online. So I've gone down this rabbit hole of North Star metrics and product analytics, and then just seeing what different people are recommending, following different people on LinkedIn who are showing themselves to either be expert or be very thoughtful in particular areas, and seeing book recommendations all of the time, and just thinking through, which book is going to help me with what I want to focus on right now.
With that, one of my problems is I get overwhelmed with information overload. There is a ton of information every day, ton of great content being written, and being a VP of product, how do you manage the pressures of knowing everything and everything under the sun and knowing more than what your team should know? Do you have that pressure? How do you segregate the noise from what they say, the noise from the chaos or whatever it is?
But signals from the noise.
Signals from the noise, yes. So how do you ensure that, okay, of course you have a day job, it takes all your energies, but how do you ensure that you optimize your learning capacity and capabilities?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a losing proposition to feel that you always have to be way ahead of your team. Hopefully your team as well is curious and upskilling themselves. And, the old adage that you should always hire people who are smarter than you are. So there are definitely, people on my team who I'm relying on their knowledge in different areas and elevating them as leaders in the things that they're best at. But also, like, having my weekly team meeting even is a great opportunity, because I'm always thinking about what is going to be the best thing for us to discuss or for us to work through. And I am doing reading and kind of brushing up on different things and looking at different perspectives for how I want to present different concepts. And that can be things as simple as thinking through how we want to manage our kickoff ceremonies when we're launching large new initiatives, and kind of the order in which we want to handle our research and our ideation in different phases of product discovery, and how that differs when you have an existing product that you're redesigning or rebuilding versus building something that's entirely new, and thinking through all of these concepts. So constantly, reading with an eye to the thing that's most pressing at that time, and working from there.
Thank you. Once I asked this same question to the CEO of a $2 billion company, Autodesk. He said exactly what you said. He said, outlearning others is a losing proposition. You can never outlearn others. In fact, the beauty of surrounding yourself with the best of people who are better than you is that you just get smarter, because you have these conversations with these people who are great at their own stuff, and then you just learn from them. And that was his way of managing learning, just surrounding himself with a team that is smarter than him. So cool. So you mentioned about reading books, and you said not just product management books. What are some of the books that may have shaped you or influenced you in your product management journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So one I actually probably read later in my career than most is Marty Kagan's Inspired, which I think is really just a great kind of playbook for what good product management looks like, that I think is really helpful for teams to think through kind of where they are in that journey from being output focused to being outcome focused, and really getting companies to be product led. Radical Candor is a big one for me, on giving feedback and really caring about people, and giving them constructive feedback in the context of that care and that trust, so they know that you have their best interests in mind and they can really hear that feedback. I also really like Setting the Table by Danny Meyer, which I read when I was working in physical workspaces, and it's all about hospitality. But it also has really important concepts around, you can't have good customer service unless you treat your employees well, because your employees are on the front line interacting with your customers. And so thinking about how people have to have 51% soft skills and 49% the technical skills to execute their role. So that has really resonated with me, and thinking about your whole ecosystem of people that you kind of have to take care of as a business in order for you to be successful. And the last one that I'll mention is Peak by Chip Conley, where he kind of applies Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is all about you need to satisfy your basic needs before you can focus on relationships or even think about accomplishments, to how you interact with your customers. But it also applies to your employees and your products, where you're going from kind of meeting expectations to meeting desires to meeting those recognized needs, things that people don't even realize that they're missing. And so that's a really great book around treating your people well, but also, again, treating that whole ecosystem right.
Excellent. Well, this brings us to the end of a fascinating conversation with Marissa SIRES. Marissa, thank you for your time and sharing your experience and insights with us.
Thank you. It's been great.
Excellent. And if my audience would like to get in touch with you, if something caught their fancy with what you said, how can they reach out to you?
Easiest is probably LinkedIn, but you can also find me at Marissa at Building Link.
Excellent. All right, Marissa. See you then. Thank you again.
Thank you.